Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to break down the hidden structural mechanics behind our modern retirement system. We're looking past the usual, everyday financial advice to examine how your savings actually function within the broader economy. Because, as you'll see, a system that was supposedly designed to secure your future has quietly morphed into something entirely different. You've definitely heard this line before. Think about it. Whenever the financial markets take a dive and need some sort of government intervention, what's the ultimate political shield they use? We have to protect people's retirement. It's repeated over and over to justify bailouts or massive liquidity injections. We're basically told we can't let risky financial actions face the music because the future of millions of everyday people is directly tied to those assets.
And the stakes here are absolutely staggering. At the end of last year, Americans collectively held almost $49.1 trillion tucked away in retirement accounts. To put that massive number into perspective, that is basically enough to buy almost the entire residential real estate market in the country. It's an unlimited pool of wealth that the financial industry gets to play around with, making hopeful retirees the ultimate participants in whatever wild ride the market decides to take next.
So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the shift to 401ks, then look at Wall Street's captive bag holders, a subsidized wealth gap, the public guarantee problem, and finally, a global warming. Now, right up front, I really want to emphasize that you absolutely should still save and use 401ks. Utilizing employer matches and tax breaks is just good financial discipline. But doing the sensible thing inside a flawed system doesn't make the system itself sensible, right?
Okay, Section 1, the shift to 401ks. For most of the post-war period, retirement actually felt pretty secure. It was built on Social Security, a company pension, and personal savings. But over the last 40 years, that foundation has radically, completely changed.
It actually all traces back to this weird little tax clause from 1978. It was originally just meant to give high-ranking corporate executives a break on deferred compensation. Fast forward a bit. In 1980, around 60% of private sector workers with a retirement plan had a traditional pension. Today, it's fewer than 15%. The 401k basically took over in the 80s because it was just way cheaper for companies to offer. And in the process, it shifted all the investment risk straight onto the worker, all wrapped up in the language of financial empowerment.
And the crucial point here is this stark juxtaposition. We moved from traditional pensions, which were defined benefit plans, meaning your employer was legally obligated to pay you a fixed amount for life, no matter what the stock market did, to defined contribution plans, like 401ks. We went from the employer owes you to you own a pile of stocks and really hope for the best. Whatever the market decides to hand you on the day you retire, well, that's what you get.
Which brings us to Section 2, Wall Street's captive bag holders. Let's explore exactly why the financial industry is absolutely in love with these new investment-based accounts.
Honestly, it's because these accounts create the ultimate complacent bag holder. It is Wall Street's absolute perfect customer. First off, people are captive. There's a 10% penalty if you withdraw early, so most folks don't touch that money until their late 50s. That makes them incredibly patient, which gives fund managers unbelievably predictable liquidity. They literally don't have to worry about a sudden bank run of people demanding their money back tomorrow. This makes retirement accounts the perfect buyers for risky, illiquid assets. Plus, let's be real, the vast majority of people are pretty oblivious to what they're actually invested in or the hidden fees involved.
And because it's political suicide to let these funds fail, critics point out that Wall Street pushes its riskiest bets into things like target date funds. We saw this exact thing with mortgage-backed securities before 2008, and now the trend is moving toward private credit, private equity, and even crypto. Analysts argue that if an asset sector starts going belly up, this massive captive pool of cash acts as a great escape mechanism. The financial guys know they can just hide behind your 401k and say they're protecting people's retirement if things go off the rails.
All right, Section 3, a subsidized wealth gap. We really need to dive into the uncomfortable reality of who actually benefits when politicians fiercely defend these accounts in the name of the average worker.
You see, the phrase "people's retirement" paints this mental picture of a working-class plumber who's just a few years away from clocking out for good. But the data tells a vastly different story. The top 10% hold the overwhelming majority of all retirement account balances. Get this, the top 1% alone hold more wealth in these accounts than the entire bottom 50% of the country combined. Meanwhile, the bottom half of households practically have nothing in dedicated retirement accounts. So the data strongly suggests this system is overwhelmingly subsidizing the ancillary portfolios of folks who are already very wealthy.
And the subsidy is massive. Because these are tax-advantaged accounts, every dollar going in means the government is missing out on revenue. According to the Joint Committee on Taxation, these tax breaks are projected to cost the federal government an eye-watering $383 billion in fiscal year 2025. It's an enormous cost to the public, but it's totally invisible because it's revenue that just never gets collected.
To really wrap your head around just how much $383 billion is, it exceeds the entire combined federal spending on SNAP, unemployment insurance, child nutrition, and federal family support programs. And you'd still have enough left over to fully fund NASA. Or look at it this way. It's enough money to just cut a $7,000 check every single year to every American over 67 to top up their Social Security. Instead, this hidden subsidy primarily flows straight to people who could afford to invest anyway, simply because the tax break scales with how much you can afford to contribute.
Moving on to Section 4, the public guarantee problem. This is the core mechanism that ties this whole flawed system together. Remember, 401ks were sold on the promise that you take the risk and you get the reward, but that deal is being honored very, very unevenly.
Here is how the conflict actually plays out. Step 1. Wall Street funnels retirement money into risky, illiquid assets. Step 2. That particular sector starts looking wobbly. Step 3. The government steps in with direct bailouts, emergency liquidity, or just quiet regulatory forbearance. And Step 4. This intervention is instantly justified to the public as necessary to protect people's retirement. So the system forces workers to take on all the market risk, but then quietly uses taxpayer resources to provide a public guarantee for Wall Street's private mistakes.
And let me tell you, this dynamic is incredibly lucrative. A recent report estimated that privately managed direct contribution accounts extracted roughly $84 billion in fee revenue in 2024 alone. $84 billion! This public guarantee lets financial institutions siphon off billions while literally using your retirement as a lobbying tool. Every time lawmakers try to introduce genuine consumer rights, worker protections, or antitrust laws, lobby groups bat it down, arguing that it might hurt corporate profits, which hurts stock prices, which, you guessed it, hurts people's retirement.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, a global warning. Because treating retirement like a captive pool of capital can get even worse, and the US definitely isn't the only country doing this. Take a look at Australia's mandatory retirement scheme called superannuation. Down there, a percentage of every single paycheck legally has to go into a private account. While the US system uses your funds to bail out private equity, Australia's massive pool of savings gets heavily funneled into their banking sector, which in turn inflates a notoriously unaffordable housing market. And recently, the Australian government quietly announced this retirement pool would be tapped to help finance military expansion. It's a glaring warning of what happens when governments start viewing citizens' retirement funds as a general-purpose piggy bank.
So what do we do? Well, the logical fixes aren't actually that complicated on paper. First, we need to stop letting the absolute riskiest products into tax-advantaged accounts. Second, we should probably means test those tax breaks so they stop acting as a massive handout to folks who really don't need them. And third, we absolutely have to stop accepting "but that's people's retirement" as an automatic veto against making financial institutions behave.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a vital question to chew on. This entire shift relied on convincing everyday people that they aren't just workers or consumers, but investors. And therefore, whatever is good for massive corporate business is automatically good for them. But who truly benefits when your hard-earned nest egg is used as a human shield against financial consequences? Keep asking these questions and keep looking closely at the systems shaping our world. Thanks for joining me.